Save on Uber One this fall with Verizon. For a limited time, get 3 free months of Uber One. Get $0 delivery on eligible food, groceries, and more, and 6% Uber One credit earned on eligible rides. Just another way to save on subscriptions you love at Verizon.com/Pandora. Subscriptions available at Verizon.com/PlusPlay. After 3-month promo, subscription auto-renews monthly at $9.99 plus taxes, unless you cancel. Visit Uber.com/Uber One for terms.
Hello and welcome to Week 6 of Jets Final Drive. I'm your host, Jeane Coakley, and like always, I'm joined by our SNY football insider, Connor Hughes. And Connor, it's just you and me today because we got a lot to talk about because it's Tuesday after a Jets game, and as we know, everything happens on Tuesdays, right?
Yeah, yeah, except for sleep. I think we were just talking about it a little bit off air, Jeane. I mean, I've got to write a column after the game, so I don't think I stumbled back into my house until 3:40 in the morning, put my head down, tried to sleep a little bit. Shout out to my wife who actually kept our daughter entertained for a little bit so I could catch up a little bit, but woke up to a text message from my editor, Amara, saying, hey, can you confirm the Reddick stuff? I'm like, what's going on with Reddick? And then about 15 minutes later, the Davante Adams trade went down. So, yeah, there is a quite a lot for us to get to here. On yet another eventful day with the New York Jets.
Exactly, but just a reminder, Jets Final Drive on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, as we know, Monday night game, Jets lost 23-20 to the Bills. They had the opportunity to take control of the AFC East. Obviously, that squandered. They're now 2-4. But like you said, Connor, you got a text from Amara saying, what's going on with the Haason Reddick deal? Then you said, wait a second, Davante Adams. Let's get to Davante Adams first. Walk me through what went on with that.
So the Jets and the Raiders have been talking for quite some time here, Jeane, because basically what had happened was...
When you say for quite a long time, when do you start? Like, we talking this summer, or we talking...
Well, literally when they got Aaron Rodgers. I mean, the rumors have been circulating, and Rodgers had been... not tampering about a potential reunion with Davante Adams for quite a while, but the Raiders were never willing to deal Adams. That was always the case. So when the Jets checked in shortly after acquiring Rodgers, they were told, look, Adams isn't for sale. When they checked in before the deadline last year, it was Adams isn't for sale. When they checked in at the deadline, Adams isn't for sale. When they checked in this offseason, Adams wasn't for sale. What we've told you over and over and over again here on SNY, written things like that, is that once Adams was made available, once the Raiders were willing to listen to offers for him, the Jets were going to be first in line, and in all likelihood, they were going to get a deal done. The reason why Adams then went to the Raiders and said a couple weeks ago, early October, and said, look, I'd like to be dealt. The reason why it didn't happen in that moment was that there were some obstacles that they needed to overcome. First, draft compensation. The Raiders originally wanted a second-round pick and nothing less than a second-round pick. Actually, they wanted second-round pick and more for Davante Adams to get a deal done. They also wanted the acquiring team of Davante Adams to pick up and absorb the remainder of his base salary. So basically, not only give us a second, but then pay every penny for a 31-year-old wide receiver who's dealing with a hamstring issue at the moment. No team across the NFL, I was told, was willing to do that in that moment. So the Raiders waited. They waited. They were hoping other teams like the Buffalo Bills, like the New Orleans Saints, like some of these other organizations that are wide receiver needy, hoping that they would come in there, sweeten the pot, and do what they needed to do to get Davante Adams. That didn't happen. It basically came down to the Jets and only the Jets. And on Tuesday, or actually this happened kind of Sunday, it started to materialize, and then it's just going to be finalized here on Monday. This thing got
Tuesday,
across the
you're off
finish
a
line.
day. So
what was that, sorry, Jeane?
You said Sunday it kind of happened, but it kind of happened Monday, and then it happened on Tuesday, right?
Yeah, Monday, I'm sorry. Yeah, like I said.
I'm the same way. I get it. Sleep deprived.
My brain is literally like porridge mush right now. So we're fighting through this. Like, I think I'm more banged up at the moment than Aaron Rodgers' body is. But yeah, so this thing basically what's going to happen is the Raiders, they conceded some and the Jets conceded some because the Raiders aren't going to eat the large portion of Davante Adams' base salary this year. The Jets are going to do that. That was something that management needed to be okay with and get the okay with from ownership, and that was something that happened this week, and so they moved forward with it. And then the Raiders are not going to get their second-round pick plus for Davante Adams. They're getting a conditional third-round pick that can become a second-round pick if Adams is a first or second-team All-Pro. That is very unlikely to happen considering we're 6 games into the year. What could happen, though, is if he's on the roster for the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, that becomes a second-round pick, which obviously the Jets will be more than happy to part with a second-rounder if they're playing in either of those games.
Okay, so the trade's not official yet because it's pending a physical. Hamstring issue, do you think that's a problem? Do you think that's going to be a problem? Because Davante Adams hasn't played in the last couple of weeks because of a hamstring injury.
Yeah, no, the one thing that's always been pretty set here with Adams is that it was going to be a 2-week injury. It was a 2-week hamstring injury. It wasn't long-term. It was a real hamstring injury. This wasn't like Davante Adams was just like, oh, I don't want to play anymore. I tweaked my hamstring. Or we've seen players hold in. We've seen players all that. That was not it. That's not what we're looking at here. This was a real hamstring issue. But he is healed. And from what I was told, Jeane, by one Jet source, the hope is that as long as he passes this physical, which, again, there's no indication he's not, he's going to be on the field Sunday night against the Steelers.
Okay, so tell me what the wide receiver room now looks like. You've got Mike Williams, you've got Garrett Wilson, you have Allen Lazard, you now have Davante Adams. Is there enough balls to go around for everybody?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, Jeane, is that it's an interesting situation because that's the $1 million question. And it's going to take a lot of people within the Jets building, and specifically talking about players, being unselfish. And it's going to really show you the high character individuals that the Jets believe that they've acquired, the team first players that they believe they've acquired. It's going to test that pretty strongly because there are going to be games now where Garrett Wilson does not see the lion's share of the targets. There are going to be games where Mike Williams is an afterthought. And I know that I'm sure the Jets will explore potentially trading him, but I talked to a source today inside the building, and they did not give me any indication that Mike Williams is about to be on his way out. Like, the Jets like the fact that they're running 4 deep right now at receiver, and Mike Williams gives them something, that 50-50 big-bodied red zone threat that maybe necessarily the other guys don't, specifically with the 50-50, although we've seen Allen Lazard come up. But Allen Lazard's going to have games where he doesn't really get the receptions. Tyler Conklin is going to be an afterthought at times. If the passing game's working, maybe Braylon Allen or Breece Hall aren't the focal point. But if the Jets are winning football games, that should be all that matters. And I think that's what you're going to see. But I got a text from somebody within the Jets building today, and it was basically, how do we stop this group? You know, how do you stop Davante Adams and Garrett Wilson? And truthfully, Jeane, I don't necessarily know how you do. And it's because you now have spacing. You now have the ability to stress a defense. Free talked about the running game opening up, Jeane, because how do you not double Garrett Wilson? Well, now you have Garrett Wilson on one side. You've got Davante Adams on the other. Actually, believe it or not, Connor Rodgers talked about this on the Jets pregame show. The best situation for the Jets would be Allen Lazard split wide, Davante Adams split wide, and Garrett Wilson in the slot. When the Jets first drafted Garrett Wilson, that's where they wanted him to play. I know everyone was like, oh, Elijah Moore's their slot receiver. No, it was Garrett Wilson. They believed Elijah Moore was going to be their Brandon Cooks, and Garrett Wilson was going to be their Cooper Kupp. He was going to be a dominant, more athletic Kupp in the slot. Now you can kind of allow him to go in there, feast in space, go down the seam, make plays in that position, and really take this offense to another level. And if you're worrying about all those receivers, well, now Breece Hall is running against an unloaded box, which is going to help the offensive line and all that stuff. So the receiving quad right now with all these guys, it is undeniably the most talented quartet I think I've seen the Jets since I've started covering this team, because they really do run 4 deep right now with 2 legitimate alphas in Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams.
Okay, on the outside looking in, it looks like this deal got done because the Jets lost to the Bills. But this deal was going to be done whether or not the Jets won or lost on Monday night. So why make this deal now, Connor?
Well, the deal happened. It's not because the Jets won or lost. I think a lot of credit, and I've been critical of him, but that certainly throughout his tenure here since I've been covering the team, and Woody Johnson's been overseeing it. But this happened because of Woody Johnson. I mean, this happened because Woody Johnson signed off on it. It doesn't happen if Woody Johnson doesn't sign off on it. And Jeane, I think the one thing that you and I've stressed here, and I'm going to continue to stress, is that Woody did not need to do this. Woody very easily could have looked at the state of the Jets and said, explain this to me. I've written the check for Allen Lazard. I've written the check for Mike Williams. I'm going to be writing a very large check for Garrett Wilson. I went out there and got you the quarterback. I'm paying for Tyler Conklin. We're running too deep at running back. We have Tyron Smith, who I signed, Morgan Moses, who I signed off on trading for and I'm paying, first-round pick and Elijah Vera Tucker. I paid John Simpson this offseason. I signed off on you guys drafting the center. We're running too deep at running back. You're now telling me I need to go out and spend another $11 or $12 million on another receiver just to have our offense function? What other team around the league has this many resources, financial, draft pick, free agent compensation tied into their offense? The Kansas City Chiefs don't, and they look perfectly fine. The Philadelphia Eagles maybe, and they're dealing with their struggles right now. But why do I need to pay all this? How about you guys go out there and prove to me you can win with what I've already paid, which is substantially more than so many other teams, and then I'll give you more resources. Then I'll do it. That could have been Woody Johnson's stance. And it was Woody Johnson's stance for the large portion of this offseason. But what he saw with Jeff Ulbrich, with Todd Downing, with this team is a roster that he believes is the most talented that the Jets have had in quite a while. He told us that after he fired Robert Saleh. He easily could have sat on his hands. He easily could have gotten more pissed off after the loss to the Bills. Instead, he said, you know what? No, I'm signing off on the financial compensation. I'm signing off on the draft pick compensation. Davante Adams makes us better. And I think that says a lot about Woody Johnson in an all-in year, being willing to go all in. I truly, truly, genuinely believe that. And he deserves a lot of credit, because if it was not for Woody Johnson, this trade does not happen. And truly, Jeane, like it's a situation right now where it's an owner going all in for his team and for his organization. Because when you look at the Jets, they probably beat the Denver Broncos if they have Davante Adams. They probably beat the Minnesota Vikings if they have Davante Adams. They probably beat the Buffalo Bills last night if they have Davante Adams. Now, you can make the argument, yeah, other things cost the Jets those games, and they did. Other things absolutely cost the Jets those games. But if they had Adams, they win them. Woody Johnson saw the means to go out there and get Adams, and that's exactly what he did.
Well, Woody Johnson's not the only one, Allen. Garrett Wilson on Twitter tweeted out, "We got to go, and we got to do it now." End of quote. All right, let's talk a little bit about the other guy, Haason Reddick. Why did the Jets decide to pull the plug and say, you know what, you can be traded if you want to?
Yeah, I talked to a source within the Jets building actually about that a couple minutes ago. I just keep checking my phone because I'm in the middle of having a conversation with him. But it's basically like the Jets don't want to give up on pass rushers, and that's what Haason Reddick is. You're talking about a guy who has double-digit sacks each of the last 4 years. The moment he shows up and steps foot on the field, it is a dynamic, dominant presence that not too many other people have. But it gets to a point here, Jeane, where enough is enough. And I remember talking to people about Haason Reddick after he didn't show up for minicamp, after he didn't show up for training camp, when we were transitioning into the regular season and he wasn't still there. He had felt like the Jets lied to him. And I'll explain the Jets side of the thing. We can talk about Reddick's side of the thing. But Reddick had felt like the Jets lied to him. And he had felt like the Jets were not honest with him. He thought that he was going to get a new contract, whether that's true or not, and then he didn't happen to it. And it got to the point where somebody told me that Reddick was going to die on his sword, and he refused to play for the Jets. He was not willing to play for the Jets. When you look at what has happened since, where we've had the reports from Ian Rappaport of NFL Network and Adam Schefter of ESPN, who have, again, I don't have a relationship with Tory Dandy to tell you what he's telling them, but Tory was basically saying, like, look, I ended my relationship with Haason Reddick because I'm trying to work something out with Joe Douglas. I have things that I believe can work for both sides. And Reddick's basically like, no. And then it got to the point where I believe it was Rapp who had this. Reddick basically started bouncing Tory Dandy's calls. So when you have a player that is now just hell-bent on it's no longer about what's reasonable. It's no longer about what's right. It's not longer about finding a middle ground. It is just a player stuck in his way saying, I am not willing to play for you. You got to just move on. And I know that this is going to go down as a wildly wrong trade, and people are going to criticize the same old Jets. They're going to rip apart Joe Douglas. They're going to do all these things. I still look at it, Jeane, as a player that told the Jets, his representative told the Jets, I am willing to play for you on your current deal. Someone then got in his ear who was not his agent and convinced him otherwise, and Reddick has been stuck in his guns for that reason. Now, the one thing that I will say about this, though, and the one thing that makes this so challenging, is that I don't necessarily know how easy a trade is going to be to accomplish because of everything that has happened to this point for the Jets. And I'm not saying the Jets are sitting here looking to get back what they lost, a third-round pick 2 years from now, or a conditional pick. Basically, let's get what we're now giving up for Davante Adams. I don't see that as that. What I look at this as a situation of is you have a player now who, when he was made available by the Eagles, everyone in the world knew he wanted $25 to $28 million a year. The reason why the Jets were able to get him for a conditional draft pick 2 years from now was because no one else was willing to give the Eagles anything. People don't trade for like legitimate players like Haason Reddick for compensation 2 years from now because of how much the NFL landscape can change with a player. That tells you how the rest of the league viewed Reddick then. It hasn't exactly gotten any better right now. Also, if you are a team interested in trading for Haason Reddick, how do you know he's actually going to play for you? Right? Like he told the Jets, Jeane, that he was going to play for them. He told coaches when he showed up for the physical. His agent and him himself told Joe Douglas he was willing to play on his current deal for the Jets as they reworked minor adjustments, but pretty much his current deal. Then all of a sudden it comes time to play on the current deal, and what happens? He doesn't show up. So, like, how do you know, like, okay, we're going to trade from him, and then he's not just going to pull the same stunt? You don't, because his word no longer means anything. So, yeah, I'm sure the Jets would love to move on from him, but this isn't only about the Jets just accepting very little draft compensation, because I really don't see them getting anything better than a 5 or a 6 for this guy. It's about, if you're the acquiring team, why are you going to do this if you don't even know if this guy's going to play for you? You don't want to get stuck in the same situation the Jets did. So unless there's, like, a proof, that like something written, I just don't know how a deal for Reddick gets done. But, I mean, we'll see. Joe Douglas has pulled some master classes before and made some deals for players. I'm like, he traded that guy? He got something for that guy? This would be another example of that.
Well, there's a lot of money that Reddick is now losing, so you would think that money talks just a little bit. All right, let's move on, Connor, because there was the game last night. Did you know that? Like, I know.
I did, yes. I do. I think I remember that.
Yeah,
honestly,
I know.
Zach Rosenblatt, Jeane, had the best tweet of any of us, where he sent out,
I saw that, yep.
Man, this week has been a really long year. Like, that is so perfect for what we're looking at right now. Like, this week has been a hell of a year, man.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's been a year and wrapped up in 7 days. Because last week on Tuesday, Woody Johnson shocked the NFL world by firing Robert Saleh, blindsided us all. Named defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich as the interim head coach. Ulbrich's first act as interim head coach was changing the play call from Nathaniel Hackett to Todd Downing. Ulbrich obviously still looking for that first win. But for you, Connor, after watching the game, what did you see from this team under Jeff Ulbrich?
Well,
in Todd Downing,
I like Jeff a lot. I want to preface. I want to preface this. I want to preface this with this. I like Jeff a lot. I think that he is going to be a very good head coach in the NFL. There's a reason, Jeane, and we talked about this on Jets pregame live yesterday. There's a reason why so many people across the NFL believe that this guy is going to be a head coach. Believe that this guy was going to be a head coach in short order. Now that he has his opportunity, he's going to make the most of it. He has all of the traits of that guy. However, people that were expecting wholesale changes because he is now replacing Robert, I don't necessarily think they were going to get it, because Jeff is a very, very similar coach to Robert. This was not like they fired Robert and they brought in this insane disciplinarian. I would compare it to when Jim Fossil was the Giants coach way back when, and he was very laid back. He was not disciplined at all, and players kind of went crazy. Then they brought in the drill sergeant of Tom Coughlin, and it was like this culture shock, and suddenly things changed. No, I mean, Jeff Ulbrich was basically, and Brian Costello worded this perfectly, he was basically Robert Saleh light. Very similar mindset, very similar in what he wants to accomplish, very similar in the way that he coaches. He's a former player, and former players generally tend to cater to the players, which can sometimes lead to undisciplined play. That's what we saw again. The penalties that were there with Robert, they were still there with Jeff. The minor silly mistakes that were there with Robert, they were still there with Jeff. And I genuinely believe that's probably going to be a case because, again, they're very, very similar coaches. It does not mean Jeff's not going to be a head coach. Doesn't mean this isn't going to work, but you weren't going to see the major changes. I will say that I was wildly impressed with the way that Jeff made halftime adjustments, because the Bills went from scoring 3 of 4 touchdowns on their opening drives, going for 85, 75, and 50-yard touchdown drives, to basically being shut out there in the second half, minus some spectacular plays individually from Josh Allen, which put them in position to score, but still they really weren't able to do anything other than a field goal. So tremendous halftime adjustments from Jeff Ulbrich. Big credit there, because we've seen tons of coaches not do that, but wholesale, not major changes, which is what I expected. Todd Downing, Jeane, that's where I think we saw the biggest difference.
And, I mean, Jeff Ulbrich is still calling the defensive plays, too. So there was a lot going on for him this week. Let's talk about the offense. 2-minute drill part 2. Aaron Rodgers again had the opportunity at the end of the game to drive down the field for a game-winning touchdown and all 3 timeouts at his disposal. And again, he threw a game-ending interception, this time with an underthrown ball to Mike Williams. Why do you think Rodgers can't find success in these 2-minute drills to end the game?
Well, it's what Aaron said, Jeane. It's
just not on Aaron.
Really, it's details. It's little mistakes. I mean, when I saw that play at first from Aaron, my initial reaction was, "Wow, that's a bad underthrow. That's not good. Like, that's what is that?" And we've seen some of that. Again, there's a lot of criticism with Rodgers as he gets older. Does he still have the same ability? But that was one was very surprising. Aaron then talked after the game, and the one thing that I really appreciate about Aaron is that he does not in any way, shape, or form mince words or bite his tongue in what he thinks or believes should happen. If a player screws up, he's going to hold them accountable, and he's going to put them on blast when they screwed up, and that's exactly what happened in this situation. Yep. There is a red line, and Aaron kept saying red line. I didn't totally understand what he meant, so I checked in with this after the game just for further clarity from everybody, and they explained it to me, where there is a red line on the Jets practice field, and every NFL team's practice field for that matter, and what you're taught about with a receiver is you own that red line. As long as you own that red line, which is 5 yards from the sideline, it puts you in a perfect position to go left, go right, and as long as that spot is yours, your opportunity to make the play is exponentially stronger. That play was designed to basically have Allen Lazard go down the seam, Mike Williams own that red line. Allen Lazard breaks free and gets a step on his defender up the seam and then throws his hand in the air. When he throws his hand up so emphatically, Taron Johnson comes off of Mike Williams and starts running with Allen Lazard. If Mike Williams held that red line, and when you see the all-20 film, you see it, it is a touchdown. So what Aaron Rodgers is doing is he's going no look. He's staring at Allen Lazard while contorting his body to throw a bomb down the red line to Mike Williams for what would have been the game-winning touchdown. As he's throwing, he sees out of his peripheral that Mike Williams is not on the red line. Mike was running an in-breaker. He tries to adjust on the fly, can't do it. That's a ridiculously hard play for anybody. Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, anybody. And the ball was underthrown and intercepted as a result. These are the little mistakes here or there that are plaguing the Jets. And you can make the argument, Jeane, that bad teams find ways to lose games. And I do believe that. I mean, I don't want to hear the excuses of, oh, the kicker missed kicks because the Bills kicker missed kicks. I don't want to hear like, oh, it's all on Mike Williams, because if the Jets were more successful in the red zone where they went 1 for 4, they're never even in that situation relying on Mike Williams in that spot. I mean, the teams that are in a rut, teams that are struggling, they tend to make these mistakes in these moments, in crunch time, and it costs them games. And the last 3 weeks, it is costing the Jets games. I would say in the opener, or the game against the Broncos where they had a chance to go down the field and score and win, you can put that one on the offensive line because they were a disaster, had no idea how to handle the overload blitz. Aaron Rodgers was destroyed as a result. That cost him that. The game against the Vikings, that one's on Allen Lazard. 4 drops, one of them on the next play, Rodgers threw the pick six. One of them cost the Jets a touchdown. Either of those 2 plays don't happen, they win that game. The Vikings, that one's on Aaron Rodgers. That's a bad throw to Mike Williams inside. He's got to put it up and give Mike Williams a chance to 50-50, high point it. Then there's this one is actually on Mike Williams. So the problem with these last 3 games is it's not one thing. It's not like you can say, man, we fixed the offensive line, we're fine. It's not like, man, we get the receiver, we're fine. Man, we fixed the quarterback, we're fine. It's been something different in each of these 3 games, which has prevented the Jets from winning 3 games that they really had an opportunity to do.
So you're saying the Jets should probably be 5-1 right now?
They could be, yeah. Yeah, they could be.
Save on Uber One this fall with Verizon. For a limited time, get 3 free months of Uber One. Get $0 delivery on eligible food, groceries, and more, and 6% Uber One credit earned on eligible rides. Just another way to save on subscriptions you love at Verizon.com/Pandora. Subscriptions available at Verizon.com/PlusPlay. After 3-month promo, subscription auto-renews monthly at $9.99 plus taxes, unless you cancel. Visit Uber.com/Uber1 for terms.
All right, well, let's talk about the kicker, because a couple of those games came down to a field goal. Is it time to make a kicking change? I mean, kicker Greg Zuerlein single-leggedly, that was great, what our producer wrote. Nicely done there. Cost the Jets this game, missing 2 field goals and the whirling wind at MetLife Stadium. On the year, that makes him 8-12 on field goals, missing more field goals already this season than all of last year. He only missed 3, by the way, last season. Is it time to take a look at other options?
Yeah, well, Jeff Ulbrich gave him an intense vote of confidence after the game, saying, look, we've won games with them before. We know we're going to win games moving forward. And I didn't necessarily take that as, the Jets are going to replace him. He is on thin ice, though, Jeane. And Connor Rodgers, colleague here at SNY, I think he's the one who coined this, and it's perfect in honor of the Mets right now and their big win over the Dodgers. Kickers are a lot like closers. They're great until they're not. That's it. They get hot, and you'll have a stretch where they're fire, and then something happens where they just fall off. Very rarely are kickers good for 10, 15 years. Like, it's just they go through these little ups and downs. Even Zuerlein, he was great with the Rams, struggled. I think he went to the Cowboys where he struggled some too, and then kind of had a resurgence again with the Jets and became a really good kicker, and now he's down. Graham Gano with the Giants, the other team that I cover, good, bad, good with the Giants, now bad with the Giants again. It happens, but I don't think I've dug on this. There's no injury with Zuerlein. I think it's just kind of like the yips. Now I will give him a little leeway because the Bills did miss field goals as well, and Tyler Bass is another one of the really good kickers in the league. You and I both walked into the game last night, Jeane. It was wildly windy and not really ideal conditions, so maybe that played a role. But I think the Jets are going to stick with Zuerlein moving forward here. But when you're connecting on 66.66 repeating percent of your field goals, that's not good enough. And you get the sense right now that every time he trots out there, the Jets are kind of holding your breath. And you wonder about the mental psyche of Zuerlein, because if he's now second-guessing himself, if he's not confident over the ball, I mean, you can make the analogy comparisons to baseball. You can make the analogy comparisons to golf or any other kicking situation. If you don't have confidence in yourself, that's your shot, and the Jets going to have to go out there and find somebody that can make these kicks.
All right, let's talk about the defense, Connor. Primarily stopping the run defense. And their last 3 losses, the Jets have given up 126 rushing yards to the Broncos, 82 yards to the Vikings, and how about 149 yards to the Bills last night? And James Cook wasn't playing, including the final 6 on a rush by Josh Allen to seal the game for Buffalo. Why is this defense struggling to stop opponents' run game?
Well, the Jets have never been a great run defense team. I mean, that's the Robert Saleh, Jeff Ulbrich philosophy on defensive linemen is they want smaller guys who are super agile, can attack and get to the quarterback. That's what they want. I think some teams, 49ers did this, the Bills did it, they're kind of loading up a little bit on power, and they're establishing the ground game like that. Like, I mean, there were many times where we heard last night, number so-and-so is eligible. I mean, they're bulking up and saying, you know what, we're just going to bully ball you. But aside from that, there have been missed tackles. There have been ill-advised angles. You look at the play that won the game or sealed the victory, I should say, for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen gets Michael Clemens to come crashing inside, and then he runs right around him for the first down. So I think there's some fundamental issues. I think there's some scheming issues. I think there's some personnel issues there. But it's going to have to be something that the Jets figure out. Now, Jeane, the one thing that can solve a lot of these issues, and it kind of goes back to the offense, is that if Davante Adams helps the Jets open this offense like they believe he can, if the Jets can go back to, remember the 2-score lead, the push felt round the world between Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh?
That felt like last year, Connor. I don't remember it.
It feels like a decade ago. Yeah, but the one reason why they want that 2-score lead, that infamous 2-score lead, is because it allows you to make the opposition, the offense, one-dimensional. You don't have to worry as much about the run game. You can pin your ears back, go get the quarterback, and the defense can start cheating a little bit. When you're in these games like the Jets have been, when you have to start guessing, when the run game's setting you up with third and manageable situations, that's why the Bills had so much success in the first half. Not a lot of success so much in the second half, and some of the penalties Buffalo was dealing with aided and thwarted some of those drives. But it really is about the Jets making the defense one-dimensional. The defense can do that themselves, but the offense can help them out with some 2-score leads, and you hope that Davante Adams helps them with that.
Listen, it's not as if Buffalo looked great last night. I mean, it was a very sloppy game, both ends. I mean, Buffalo had 11 penalties for 94 yards. Connor, is the AFC East really like anybody's to win? I mean, at this point, I know the Bills have a 2-game lead right now, but are they that much better than everybody else in the AFC East?
Josh Allen is. Allen is. The Jets won that game the Bills won that game because of Josh Allen. Referees, yes, the Jets made some mistakes, but if Josh Allen is not the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, the Jets that's not a Bills victory. It's wide open. Even at 2-4, you can see it. 2 games back of the Bills. They still have to play the Dolphins twice. They play the Patriots again. They play the Bills again. You look at the back half of the Jets' schedule, and there are so many games there for the taking. I mean, I don't think the Steelers are world beaters in spite of their 4-2 record. They're still going to play the Seahawks, who stink. The Cardinals stink. The Colts stink. I mean, there's a ton of games there for the Jets to go out there and get. But if you're looking for reason for optimism, truthfully, for this team, Jeane, and I don't believe it's the division that the Jets play in, because 4-2 division-leading Bills, that's a good record to be leading your division. It's not like they're 3-3 or anything like that. Like 4-2 is a legitimate record through 6 games. The Jets are 2 back for a reason. But the biggest hang your hat on, feel good, it's Todd Downing, in my opinion. And we talked about Jeff Ulbrich a little bit earlier on in the show, and were there enough changes or whatever. The changes that I was hoping to see from the Jets when they made these adjustments, and you can make the argument that it probably would have happened with Robert Saleh because he wanted to do the same thing. Todd Downing, what he did against the Bills, the way he called that game, it was everything to me. The Jets hurt themselves with, again, Mike Williams, user errors. But the reason why the Jets didn't score, it was player error, not coach error. I remember talking to players going into this game, Jeane, and they told me that they felt like for the first time in a year and a half, they were at a legitimate, schematic, scheming advantage to their opposition. They felt like the conviction in which Todd Downing calls games, the confidence that he has in himself and what he is asking his players to do, it was going to put them in a position to win, when in the past with Nathaniel Hackett, it was like, hey, here's 3 plays, Aaron, what do you want to do best? Like, no, this was Todd Downing saying, this is what we're going to do, it's going to work, let's go out there and run it. And what you saw on Monday night, Jeane, was a reintroduction of the motioning, where the big 42-yard run that Breece Hall had, he originally lined up as a receiver. He motions into the backfield. The Jets get him the ball on that sweep around the outside. He takes off down the field for the big gain, and the Jets probably should have scored a touchdown, but they didn't end up doing that. It's not just about that, though, right? That's a play that we see early on. The Jets then use that play to set something else up, because later on in the game, they fake that to Breece Hall with the same exact look. Then they come back to the complete other side of the field to get a pass to Garrett Wilson on like a little slip screen kind of thing. He picks up the first down. We saw the Jets using plays in the first quarter and the second quarter to set up things in the third and the fourth. We saw creativity like the flea flicker, although it didn't work. Breece Hall running down the seam as a receiver. Loved that. The touchdown that was called back because of the holding, it wasn't just Braylon Allen and Breece Hall in the backfield together. You had Braylon Allen as the fullback, give him the ball, lower his shoulder, fight into the end zone for the touchdown. I came away so wildly impressed with the game plan from Todd Downing. As Aaron Rodgers said, they should have dropped 30 points and blown the Bills out, in large part because of Todd Downing. I love the conviction. I love the confidence. I love the way that he used plays to set each other up. This is what an offense is supposed to look like. And again, you add now Davante Adams to the mix. There's a ton of things that can happen. You want to avoid the injury bug. But for the first time in a year and a half, for the first time since Mike LaFleur was the offensive coordinator of the Jets, I genuinely believe that the Jets can go into games and have a coaching and scheming advantage. And that was not present when Nathaniel Hackett was the offensive coordinator. They were relying on talent and talent alone. Now the Jets are not just doing that. They have elite level talent, and you're marrying it with a coach that's going to put them in the best place to have success.
All right. Well, Jets owner Woody Johnson talking at the league meetings in Atlanta today said, quote, "You have to go with your instinct and build a culture." We'll have to see if that instinct will pay off. All right, Connor, I know you have a dentist appointment.
He also said you don't have to think, or he said thinking's overrated. So I'm just going to bring that up. Next time Bree's in an argument with me, I'm going to say that to her. Yeah, thinking's overrated. There were some doozies from Woody today. He was firing on all cylinders. This is
listen, it's a Tuesday. Tuesday's a day where Woody just likes to do some stuff. You know,
he's off, man. He's going on. I give him credit. He's filled it up the last 2 times. I thought his press conference that he gave us after the firing of Robert Saleh was one of the best media availabilities that he had, and now this one at the owners' meeting in New York, I believe. I saw Diana Rossini, the Athletic, was tweeting out quotes. He was filling it up.
Listen, he wants to win. He wants to win, and he's going to do everything he can to win right now. I do know you have a dentist appointment. I had a dentist appointment this morning. Can we not make dentist appointments on Tuesdays? Because
I hate the dentist, and I haven't gone in a really long time. And Bree, like, I obviously have a daughter now, and so I'm kind of like talking to Bree about like I gotta be better, and I gotta kind of just do my thing and all that stuff. But
you haven't been to the dentist. I'm gonna be your mother right now, and shame on you. Good for Bree.
I know, yeah. She's like, I gotta take care. I gotta, my dentist now. I gotta get a doctor. I gotta get all this stuff. So that dentist is first on the list.
And you do it in October when you cover the Jets. Great job, great thinking, smart move. Yeah. All right, Connor. I will see you next Monday. Thank you all for joining us on this episode of Jets Final Drive. Again, listen to Jets Final Drive on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. For Connor Hughes, I'm Jeane Coakley. We will see you next Monday to recap the Jets-Steelers Sunday night football matchup if Connor can talk because he doesn't go to the dentist. Okay.
Save on Uber One this fall with Verizon. For a limited time, get 3 free months of Uber One. Get $0 delivery on eligible food, groceries, and more, and 6% Uber One credit earned on eligible rides. Just another way to save on subscriptions you love at Verizon.com/Pandora. Subscriptions available at Verizon.com/PlusPlay. After 3-month promo, subscription auto-renews monthly at $9.99 plus taxes, unless you cancel. Visit Uber.com/Uber One for terms.